Hello, everyone. This is Jay Raygun, and welcome. What I am going to do today is a little bit of a tour of my latest course, the Greens at Mistwood. This is a course that's been out for a couple of weeks now, and it was a entry into VctryLnSprts Fantasy Course Design Contest, the results of which at this point in time have not been submitted, so I don't know where I'm going to finish in the competition. I'm hopeful that I finish fairly high. I've been in a couple of competitions now where my finish has not necessarily coincided with how I've felt about my personal project. I think most artists, most course designers, love what they put out, and they hope everybody else enjoys it. But the reaction so far to this course has been overwhelmingly positive. As of today, March 4th, 2022, as you can see on the PC at least, we're just about at 4,000 plays. Not sure what the play count's like on Xbox or PlayStation or the other consoles, but it's been featured on a couple of society playlists, and I'm very thankful for the reaction that I've gotten, the plays that I've gotten. And it's now my second most popular course behind Crooked Arrow. And if you know anything about Crooked Arrow or my feelings on Crooked Arrow, I think that Crooked Arrow is more of a novelty kind of design golf course. But this one, the Greens at Mistwood, I really took care in my design, not only in the fantasy aspect of it, but in the golf itself. Excuse me. So what I wanted to do was kind of take a flying tour around, because as a fantasy course, there's a lot of stuff going on, both on the course and off the course. And most of it you'll see during a typical round, but there are some neat touches that I put in here, some design aspects that you're just not going to be able to see during a round. But I wanted a chance to kind of show them off, just to kind of show the amount of work that went into this. And so we're going to fly around a little bit, and I hope you enjoy it. So tag along. So first off, I am going to change a couple of things here. I'm going to get rid of my player, the ball, the putting grid, and we can take a little fly around the scene. So the Greens at Mistwood. The name itself, Mistwood, comes from a castle in the Game of Thrones universe. I knew going in when I built my fantasy course that I really wanted to lean heavily into that literal fantasy, so more of literature fantasy. I'm a big fantasy reader, a lot of Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, a lot of Brandon Sanderson novels. I'm getting into the Witcher novels now that the Netflix show's in its second season. And so I knew I wanted, castles and bright colors, waterfalls, a fantasy world like a Disney movie or like a high fantasy novel or movie. But I didn't want to do I thought about a couple of names for the course, cribbing from Lord of the Rings, but most of those names are very well known. I didn't want to be just a blatant ripoff, so went into the Game of Thrones lore and found Mistwood, and I thought Mistwood really worked with the name here. So we have the Greens at Mistwood, and the full name is the Greens at Mistwood Keep, but the Greens at Mistwood Keep is a couple of characters too long for the game, and so I had to shorten it to just the Greens at Mistwood. So immediately, hole number one, you are starting out next to the lower level of the castle here. And in the original build of the castle, this area was actually taken up by a hedge maze. And the original layout of this course was much less cohesive than I had it now. There were some holes that didn't quite make sense about where they were going, so I kind of ripped all that up and started again. And I knew I wanted to start and finish at the castle, so hole number one starts out here. And you have a couple of gardens leading down. You don't really have a traditional clubhouse. I guess the entire castle is kind of the clubhouse. But you do have an obvious starting position here. You got your sign to let you know, hey, you're, welcome to Mistwood Keep and enjoy your round. Even though it's fantasy and not all tee boxes, according to the contest rules, not all tee boxes had to be realistically reached. I did want to offer that and kind of challenge myself to do that. So when we start here at the castle, you're going to lead down off the tee box down these steps to the lower tee box. There's only two tee options on this course. So you go down the lower tees, down the steps here, and around the bridge. A little bridge around the waterway here, and across the lower bridge and down and out along the course. But for now, I kind of wanted to take you around the castle grounds here. We have the castle proper. I didn't go into a lot of the background in terms of what part of the castle is what, and make up little stories about who lives here or anything like that. I had enough to do with just building the course. But the castle was the first thing that I built on this course, and it was really just this lower portion right here, these two parts, and then this small section right here. And I was looking at some fantasy art and was really inspired by a picture that I had seen of a castle with, it was built high up on some rocks, and it had a bridge going across to another portion of the castle with some high waterfalls. So that's kind of what I started with, and then came down into this lower lake level, and knew I wanted a lot of cascading waterfalls to kind of add to that fantasy aspect of it, where it doesn't really matter where the water comes from, just the water's there and it's always flowing. And so we've got a couple of features here. We've got some aqueducts, built up with a pool and a fountain, a lot of walls, a lot of these stone walls throughout the grounds, a little bit of the castle towers here built into the rock face. This portion right here, this is kind of like, how I wanted, a little bit of realism to go with my fantasy. I could have hidden this doorway or, sunk it down a bit more, but I didn't. And so I built this stairwell here so that our little virtual monarchy can head out their door here and down to the lower level courtyard. I may find a couple of doorways that don't lead anywhere, but I think for the most part, most of them do. There are some windows that are obviously blocked. I couldn't help that in most cases. Then you have the upper bridge here, some cascading waterfalls leading across to the second portion of the castle, which itself has its own little courtyard. I really loved these bare sycamore trees. You only really find them around parts of the castle. I imagine that maybe they are a rare type of tree in this world, and only the members of the nobility, the people that live in the castle, planted them and grew them. And maybe they're out of season right now, and so they're not blooming, or perhaps a curse has befallen the land, and their life-giving trees that they had planted no longer bear fruit. And perhaps the way to break the curse is to shoot under 58 on this golf course. So, maybe you got a little something to play for. But you do have other parts of the course that come in and around the castle here. You have this upper bridge area that connects these two sides here. And underneath and on the other side, you come out and there's more of the course. I didn't want to leave too much of the castle bare. If you look at even, real castles, especially the French castles, there is landscaping everywhere. And it is intricate. And in my first design of this course, I had a couple other areas. I had a hole that played out into a garden, and that garden had hedge animals. all very intricate, but in the end, I sacrificed some of the off-course design stuff to build a better golf experience. So I think it came out better in terms of the golf itself. And if I have to sacrifice a few hedge elephants and hedge gorillas, then it's all the better for it. Here's one of my main gardens off to the side. This is to the right of hole number 3. You can see it in different angles of hole number 3, or when you're playing hole number 4. Some of these trees are custom made. That's just a bush on top of the bare pine tree that has the nest on top of it. Those trees there. And, I took some inspiration from a lot of real life castle gardens. And you see a lot of them, they have these low hedges here that kind of separate these sections of different planting. And again, adding to the element of color that I wanted. This is, a little bit of a geometric planting. Got kind of a raised planter here. These trees or bushes, they played a big part. These kind of rounded top ones, and then these that look more like crepe myrtles. They're not crepe myrtles in the game. There's only one crepe myrtle in the game, but these bushes, if you make them large enough, they look just like crepe myrtles. But I used them all around the course for bits of color here and there. I think they worked really well around some of the rock faces, and obviously in some of the garden spaces that I have. The purple plants right there, those are other sycamore trees. I thought they worked really well for adding, pops of color in the bushes. We have some birch trees that I've used as bushes, some cashmere elms, some Palo Alto, Palo something, the green and yellow tree. There's a couple of them in the designer. I've used those for planting as well. And I try to take great care with the garden planting. I wanted it to make sense. I didn't want it to just, be a bunch of plants thrown together. I wanted it to be like if somebody were to plant this, there was a reason for it. And it's something that they could maintain. This area right here, it may look a bit messy, but that is, if you take a look at some of the castle gardens around, that's kind of how a lot of stuff is planted. You plant a couple of big bushes or trees, and then there's a lot of little planting around it. And then you have this little lower level courtyard here that's a little less fancy. You come out of the side of this castle here, and your walkway leads you around. You have a nice little gazebo that you can sit in and watch sort of the action that's going on. You get a nice view of the the waterfall in the background here. And then you can lead up and take a little walk around the gardens. The castle itself is built into a rock face. So there's tons and tons of rock work. Another little garden area here with a fountain and another little seating area, gazebo. I tried to use up as much space as possible. My planting meter at the end of this was maxed out. I had none left. And so there are some empty spaces, but I tried to hide those as much as possible. Let's go around on this side real quick. We'll come back to it a little later as well. This is the big sycamore tree. It's kind of the eye catcher. If you think of Lord of the Rings, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, Minas Tirith is a big castle there. It has a giant white tree out on the end of a courtyard that overlooks, a sheer cliff face. And then up here, you have some more aqueducts that are being fed out of this fountain. Another little courtyard area with another tree. And you have these aqueducts here. One of them is feeding down into these lower pools that are then going into the lower lake. And then the other one is feeding down into this rock pool here that then leads down. And these are these are some of the touches that you don't have to put in, because are they going to be seen? Probably not. But if somebody goes digging around, I want it to make sense. And so, I used the high falls design tool in places where there are literal high falls. And then, you use the low falls on stuff, just kind of like water cascading over the rocks. And so you can kind of see the difference here. And, in real life, that's how it would be. If your water's falling from high up, it's going to fall farther and faster, of course. And if it's not falling from higher up, it's going to be a little more tame. And so you get these little areas where the water's just kind of cascading down, then collecting and finally falling to greater lengths and collecting into this larger lake area. So we'll go back to the first tee box. Just kind of want to show off the castle there. So the first hole, dogleg right, plays pretty far downhill. You can catch this edge of the fairway down here with the right kind of wind or conditions. Kind of shorten the hole off here, but you're not going to be in much trouble. If you just take a normal drive, you're normally going to end up somewhere around this area, depending on the wind. This little outcropping of a castle here, I kind of added about, midway through my design. I wanted something to take up this place, and I thought, okay, well, how about, maybe this is like the guest castle, or it's a, it's a son-in-law castle. Maybe the king or the queen have married their daughter off, and that's kind of the keep that they have given to their new son-in-law, the new prince, to live on the grounds with them. And so they're near the castle, but they are not, right next to mom and dad or the in-laws, and they get a little awesome look at the 18th green here. They have a deck built out over the water here with their own, modest courtyard and landscaping. But then on the other side, they get to look out at holes number 1 and 2 and 15. They get a really nice view. If you were up here, let's say you're up here in this tower looking out the window, I mean, this is your view when you wake up in the mornings. And I think that's just awesome. That's the kind of things that, as you're playing the game, you're not going to think about, but as the designer, you really gotta try to make things make as much sense. You can't just plop a lot of stuff down and then think it's going to work. You can see a lot of this planting right here on the first hole is carried on throughout the course. I used a lot of these different colored flower grasses to again add those pops of color. You can see where I've used that, crepe myrtle bush and that rounded top bush. Those little red bushes or purple bushes right there really make adding color easy to areas. And I think it really works well with the rest of the pines and spruce trees that are throughout the rest of the course. You'll see these cottages throughout while you play. Some are a bit more intricate than others. Maybe this is something that doesn't quite make sense about where they are put on the course, but I imagine that they were here before the course, and the course was just built around them. So the course is most likely a private course, so it's not like you're getting a bunch of people off the streets down here that's going to come and knock on your door and ask to get their ball, out of your front hedges. But I didn't skimp on the design. You want to be able to look at everything from different angles. So this particular cottage right here, you're probably never going to see this unless you fly around or you take a look, coming from 18 tee box or 17 green. But, they have a cow and they got a little garden here that they've planted. And so, even though the front looks great, you always wanted to, take a look at the back as well. Like my commanding officers used to say when I was back in the Navy, a toe shine is no shine. A heel shine is a real shine. And that just means, everybody's going to see the toes of your shoes. Of course you're going to shine them. But the people that take care to also shine the heel of their shoes that not everybody's going to see, those are the people that take pride. So hole number 1 green here. Again, some of the design aspects, another cottage. This one in particular, I built this water wheel. Maybe there's a grain mill inside of this one. But it makes sense where the water is flowing. The water's flowing from uphill down here, collecting in the lower lake. down through this little river area. And so this water wheel being here, at least in theory, makes sense before the water spills out into the larger collection area. They also got a little garden. Maybe they're growing some carrots and some cabbages and maybe some jalapeno peppers. But again, with some planting around the cottage area here. Going into the tee box. I wanted each tee box on this course to have something, whether it was planting or whether it was, some stone walls, something. I wanted each tee box to, be decorated, not necessarily heavy decorated like this, but just to have something that added some visual interest to each tee shot. This one over here has like a little planter box of some flowers, and I think this is a really cool view from this tee box up to this green. You get the Snow Peak mountain over to the left there. You get the castle to the right, and I think these sycamore trees, these bare sycamore trees, I think really add a cool silhouette to some of these tee shots. They break out from the background trees, from the pines and the spruces. And so maybe they don't make sense, agriculturally, unless, you go by my story with, life-giving fruit on these trees, and that's why they were planted. But the player's not going to know that. But so they may not make sense agriculturally, or, they're only around these areas. But again, I think they just add to the visual interest of the course. So this hole plays uphill. And then the number 3 tee box, you don't really see this one up close unless you're off the back of the green on number 3, but then you're playing, or number 2, but then you're playing back downhill, so you really don't see it anyways. But this is one of the more heavily decorated tee boxes. You got this rock pile here, and a lot of these steps. I mean, you're gonna get your steps in if you were to have to walk this course. But again, that's the thing about fantasy golf is you don't necessarily have to be able to realistically make it to every tee box. Some tee boxes are going to be, 150 feet up above, where you just came off of a green. But I wanted there to be a way, so that's why these steps are here. And because you got a lot of steps, well, got to give you a little rest area, right? Maybe take a little sit down before you're ready to take your tee shot. You just walked up, 75 steps. Carrying, maybe a 20 pound bag. It's going to be tough. And so your first hole played out away from the castle, but then the next 2 play up towards it. So you kind of get your first real view of the castles here. And, depending on which side you take here, this is a design aspect. So if you've played this course, you probably came to this hole. It's the 3rd hole, so it's early on. And you go, okay, it's par 5 here, but I got a split fairway. And normally on a split fairway, there's a reason for it. It's like a risk reward. You take one side because it cuts a lot of the length off, but it's a tougher shot. Maybe it's a not a good look into the green. The other side, maybe it makes it a 3-shot par 5, or maybe it, makes it a very long second shot, but it's a much safer shot. Well, a little bit of insider information here. When I built this hole, the only fairway was this left fairway. And so I wanted the tee shot to play up over to this hill. And you get up here, and then this is your look, down into the green. And the fairway on the right side only started right here. So basically, from here on was where the right side fairway was. And so in that case, that makes sense. Okay, this portion of the fairway is too far away for a tee shot, but let's say you get into trouble, you don't make it onto your target here, you're not going to make it to the green. Well, then you have a choice of either laying up in this area, or you can try to get farther up to the hole. There's a couple of layup areas here. But visually, let's go back to the tee box real quick. Visually, as I was trying to finish the course up, there was this big empty spot right here. And I have to admit, I was, a little bit, I had a little bit of a golfer's block and didn't really know what to put there to kind of take up that space and keep it interesting. At the time it was just, a large area of just open grass. And I guess I could have kept it that way, or maybe, thrown some rocks in there or something. But I wanted it to make sense with, what was going on with the castle over here and what was going on with the course. So I ended up taking this fairway back, adding in these bunkers, and it became a split fairway. And that kind of tells you a little something about how you got to take care with what you do. Because if you do something on your course with one intention in mind, but you don't really think through the different possibilities, you can end up with something like this, where the reason I put this right side fairway in was to add some visual interest into the course, but inadvertently I created a much shorter pathway into the hole that people are going to take every time. But the problem with that is down here, which was not really a path that I really meant to be taken, down here, when you get down here, you can't see the green. It's not a good look. It's not a good second shot. If I'd built this as a split fairway that I meant, I would at least want you to have some sort of look into it. Or if it's going to be a blind second shot, it's going to be a much better looking blind shot than this. This, you can't see anything. You see the top of a house, a little bit of the bridge, and that's it. It's not a good look. So that's one of my regrets on this course was I think I should have just kept the fairway up here, kept the left side to make it an interesting drive up a hill, and then figured out, taking some more time and figured out something to do down here. Maybe another portion of the castle sticks out over here. I could have done that. But anyways, the cool thing about this hole is it plays across the river here. And instead of just a regular bridge playing across and splitting the fairway, I actually let the grass grow up over the bridge. And so even though in the designer capabilities, I can't literally make a tunnel under the ground, you kind of get what I was going for here with the water going under the bridge and the grass growing up over it. And then down over here is kind of one of the hidden details that you're probably not going to see during your round. But behind this cottage here, you'll see they have built a little stone walkway, a little raised stone walkway. And it leads to, oh, look at that, a secret door. And where does that secret door lead? I have no idea. It's behind the waterfall here. Maybe that's where the witch lives, the witch who put the curse on the castle that withered the life-giving fruit of the sycamore trees. You can create your own story. I mean, it's kind of like Bob Ross out here, right? It's your world. During your round, you want to think up a story because you're playing terrible, so you got to take your mind off some things. Think up why these things are here. Again, going to the tee box, there's some steps because it's a high tee box, but you can get up here. And then number 4 plays down to the castle grounds. And this is where you really get a good look, at the gardens to the right. I really like these stone bridges. I use them a lot throughout. Here you're crossing over to the green. And then, you ask, okay, well, then how do I get to the next tee box? Well, you actually got to go into the castle. Okay, so you go into the castle. You're in this part right here. So let's just go in here. You're walking through. Make sure to wipe your feet. You go up the stairs and out this door. You cross the bridge. You get a nice look back where you came from. You get a great look out over to the castle grounds, down the waterfalls here. No spitting, please. I know it looks like fun. You want to spit off the bridge and watch your loogie float down to the lake. Don't do that. That's gross. We drink this water, man. Just don't do that. You head into here, take the stairs down, and you pop out on this side. And now you're on number 5 tee box. So yeah, it's a long ways. I didn't say it was easy to get there. I said, all paths, you can get there. And so you're out on the number 5 tee, and this one plays down through, a pass in the mountains and over this kind of junk waste area that will come into play later. But a nice little wooden bridge, a lot of planting, to add that visual interest over a large area that would otherwise, be empty or taken up, just by grass or something. You have some more cottages that are, taking up some of the space, and again, cutting their own silhouettes into the background, each with their own, unique planting. Some have planted, gardens around. Some have trees. Most have fencing, to separate their properties. This one has a little more wild planting going on. They've allowed theirs to kind of grow up. And then your tee shot, normally on this hole, your tee shot will cross over, and because of the slope of the fairway, you have a good chance of rolling down fairly far, so that your next shot, you can take a long iron or a hybrid something into this green. It's dangerous, however, because it is a downhill lie, downhill shot. Depending on the wind, depending on the pin placement, there's the pins in the front here, so you got to be careful. You don't have very far to miss to the left if you're going at the pin. You have your bunker here, you have some rough. If you're laying up, there's a larger area to lay up. And then, if you're short or you start heading right, there's another pond area here with another little cottage kind of built into the hillside there. So it's a dangerous second shot into here. And then you're heading back up the hill to the number 6 tee box, and you can see, I've taken some different versions of planting. The number 6 tee box, again, has some more wild planting, but I kind of kept it cohesive with the stone pillars here to kind of tie everything in together. This one features some castle ruins, like a watchtower, an old watchtower ruins over here. The original build of this course had a par 3 that played through like an old ruins of a keep, and when I tore that down, that didn't come along with it. But I did want some kind of ruins throughout, just to kind of show some age, give some life to the off the course aspects. And so I built this, and you don't just put up walls. Because a tower, you got to get up the tower. And whereas, most of the stairs have fallen down due to decay, there's still some portion of the stairs that would be used to climb the tower. And then these trees here, these trees have kind of grown wild. So whereas the others may have been planted, maybe these have, grown wild after the ruins. They're kind of creeping out through the windows here. But for hole 6, I came up with this design. I thought it was kind of fun. It's a short par 4. It's like 327 yards, but from tee to green, I believe it's only maybe 305, 310. And I wanted to give people, the idea to go for it. And whereas the normal play would be to take your 3-wood or a hybrid, just be careful and put it out here. Get past the corner. So that you can have a good look into the green. It is possible to either cut a drive on a draw around the corner and try to roll up onto the green, or even, maybe even take a high fade. You can cut through these treetops and take a high fade around. Only problem is, it's a quasi island green. It's separated from the fairway by nothing but heavy rough and this little strip of light rough. So you either got to get lucky with the wind, or you have to, get lucky with a bounce. Otherwise, you're normally going to end up in a bunker here or in the rough. I mean, it's not the end of the world, which is why I wanted people to go for it. Try it out, because you're not gonna, there's not gonna be a big penalty if you don't make it. So why not have some fun? It's a fantasy course. We're here to have fun. And you kind of see, in the background here, I tried to fill up the background with trees so that the forest looked dense. and then kept some of the flower and grass planting throughout, just to tie everything together. Which brings us to number 7, which is our second par 5 with a split fairway, 2 of 2, no more splits throughout this one. But this one makes a bit more sense. You have a tee shot that will automatically, the waypoint is out here, and so you're going to be pointed to the right side. And from the tee, you're going to be looking at a couple of bunkers, and so you're going to be taking your shot, kind of weaving them between the bunkers there. But then hidden on the left side, and it may not be as obvious, during a first playthrough, or if you don't look at the book, but hidden over here on this left side is a little split. It's almost an afterthought. It wasn't an afterthought in the design aspect, but it's almost an afterthought. Like they just said, okay, we'll take the mower, or maybe they use goats to keep this fairway trim. I don't know, but we'll take the mower down on this side, and we'll tie the two fairways together, with a little bit of light rough, but we'll give the player a chance to, knock it down through this little valley here, this little ravine, and you can take off about 30 or 40 yards because it's a downhill shot. Once you hit over here, which is about where your drive would normally hit, you can bounce and carry down here to the water edge. And you have this little island out here with, with its own cottage. This is the area of the course where you have a lot of cottages. It's close to the castle grounds, so it kind of makes sense in terms of, you always want to be close to the keep, because in times of war, you would leave your home and go into the keep, so you want to be close. They have maybe they're a more affluent villager. They have a much bigger garden. I didn't put a boat out here, but maybe they have a boat, or maybe they just use that as like a little fishing dock. Maybe they fish this pond. This pond's not connected to any other body of water, so it's just a pond. And a bridge to get there, because I wanted it to make sense on, okay, well, there's this cottage. How the heck do they get there? Well, they got a bridge. Otherwise, this play is just like a long little dogleg left par 5. And then, for each hole, I tied the hole into the next fairway with strips of light rough, but I kept the start of that path off of the fairway for the most part, because I didn't want, light rough just kind of starting somewhere on the course, and so I kept it off here so that it's obvious to a player, if you were literally walking this course, where the next tee box is going to go, but that light rough doesn't come into the strategic play around the green, because maybe you hit a shot in and it's supposed to be in heavy rough because it's a bad shot, but there's a strip of light rough there for some reason and you caught a break. I don't want that. Number 8, little par 3 here. I think this is one of my favorite looks on the course, even though these are the upper tees, or the forward tees, sorry. So from the back tees, this is one of my favorite looks. You get the castle far off into the background. You get kind of the 3 layers of cottages on the left. You have the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. I think the planting, it draws your eye towards and around the green, and then the three bunkers on the right and the 3 bunkers on the left, kind of stack one on top of each other to give that visual depth. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, and I'm not saying that like I did that on like knowingly I did that, but it's funny because, when you start either, designing golf courses, or you start drawing, or you start painting, or whatever, you actually start doing things because they make sense, and you don't know why they make sense. They just do. And then somebody tells you, oh, well, that makes sense because it actually balances the eye, and it, the human eye is drawn towards this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I've always done that. I didn't know why I did that, but now I know that there's, a reason behind it. And, so you get up here, and like this bunker in the front, it's not going to come into play unless you hit just an awful shot. I mean, that bunker's not going to come into play, but it's there to add to that visual interest, because from the tee, maybe it looks a little closer than it actually is. and it just gives that depth to the view. And then you have this other collection point, these low points in the land. I made them into lakes. Some wild planting on the right, some of these cottages with, ivy. This is a cottage that I spent a lot of time on, actually, and it's probably never going to get seen, at least not in detail. But, the details are still there. So if somebody does fly around, you have a little entry gate, and, you got ivy growing up the walls. This one over here, you have a stone stairway down to their landing area where maybe they do some fishing in this pond. Otherwise, you go up and around to hole number 9, which I am totally missing. Oh, there we go. Let me find the pathway again. Going through the woods, up the path, and here we are to the number 9 tee box. And number 9 plays back towards the castle. And this is a split fairway, not a two-sided split, but the end of the fairway here is about at typical 3-wood length for the game, about 248. And then the other side over here starts at about 305. But it's also, I think at this point, it's about 40 feet down. And so depending on your wind, even though the marker, your marker in the game, let's say you hit a 296 driver like I do, the marker will still put you right about here on these rocks. And so it looks like a very dangerous shot. Like, man, there's no way I can make it. And depending on the wind, there is no way you can make it. And I didn't make anything out of bounds. And that was for a reason. It's a fantasy course. And so I didn't want there to be any out of bounds. If you get yourself into trouble, it's going to be up to you to get yourself out of it, either by taking an unplayable lie or just by trying to hack it out of somewhere. So if you get down into this stuff, I'm sorry, man, but sometimes it happens. But that was on purpose. But with the right wind, or hitting a good shot, you can make it across. You can either bounce off these rocks here and be hopeful, or you can literally make it across with enough downhill and catch this slope. And the green plays up again back to where this similar area as number 4, and you get another view of the castle coming in. But you get another view of a different area of the castle. And then the back 9 starts taking us kind of into the wilderness on the other side, and this side of the castle grounds is a lot more wild. And in my mind, this is kind of where the castle started, like where they've built their first settlements, and they've since kind of gone into ruins as they've built. They're much larger and much more decorative castle grounds over here. So number 10 plays almost 100 feet uphill to this kind of plateau fairway area where you can lay up to this lower area, because depending on wind and depending on how good you are and how well you can read elevation changes and everything, it's very hard to make it up here. This is a lot more safer, but again, you have some stairways here. These are obviously a little less decorative stairways than you may be used to. I thought about putting rocks, kind of making this a rock face, but in the end I decided I didn't want players trying to go for it and smashing into the rocks and ending up in some weird places. I'm not that much of a penal designer, and so you can either go for it up here, you can take a little pitch shot off of a layup, but this is a castle keep area that has kind of gone into ruins, and I don't think it looks like this in all light settings. Like if you play this course on a different time of day other than default, this may look differently. But I made it like this because the shadows on the face really kind of make it look dirty and grimy, like it hasn't been touched in maybe centuries. There's trees growing up around it. There's trees growing through it. The old patio area here has been overgrown. You can hardly see through all the sticks and weeds and rocks. It's stark contrast to what you'll see coming up. And, that's kind of just a preview of one of my favorite looks of this course here. It's off the number 10 green. So if you're down here on the green, you're not really going to be able to see it. But that's okay because you'll see it on a tee shot coming up. Little rock stairwell here leading up to the 11th green. And, this for me, this is the start of the river that flows all the way down through to the large lake. This is also the highest point of the ground, so it kind of makes sense for the water to start and collect here. Now, you don't ever really see how the water collects, why it collects. You don't see the mountains, off to the side. And if you kind of want to peek behind the curtain, the water just kind of starts. I think I left enough cover in the design where you don't need to see where it starts. You can see that it's high ground back there. You can see the tops of the trees heading up, so you know that the ground is elevated. And, if you really want to think about it, water flows downhill, so okay, it makes sense. And, this was maybe, again, one of the early keeps, but this one is kept up with because this is also where they start damming the waterway and kind of controlling where the water goes. So the dams and the waterways, the sluices in here would need to be kept up with. Maybe sticks and logs and debris would need to be taken out. And so this castle itself is kept up with a bit more. But you can see, I added some fencing here for kind of grading to catch, leaves and debris that may flow through. That wall back there is actually part of the castle itself. I couldn't get rid of it, so kind of a regret there. But you're never going to see it during a normal playthrough anyway, so it really doesn't matter. And the water collects on this side of the green, and then there is a tunnel built out underneath. And you have a bunker, and you can see it's kind of a flattened bunker. And that's on purpose here because it wouldn't make sense for a huge bunker to be dug out right on top of a tunnel here. But I wanted the bunker there just for a little bit of not only danger challenge, but also to help stop a ball if it starts, caroming off. Give the player a little bit of help staying out of that. But the tunnel is dug under, and it comes out the other side here through these kind of waterways. And again, those low falls just kind of splashing over the rocks there. You got some vegetation built up. I tried to hide a little bit that I can't literally make a tunnel, so tried to hide it with some vegetation. I liked that par 3 green site. Number 12 here, one of my very least decorative tee boxes, but again, stone pillars to kind of tie everything in together, keep that visual continuity going. This one you play back across. You're starting to play back towards the castle. You do have your bridges here to cross the waterways. This bit of fairway here, I didn't need it. It doesn't come into play, but it was an empty space that I did want to do something with. And so I figured, you know what? This is a par 5. It's a longish par 5. And maybe for shorter hitters, I'm talking real life here, not in the game, but for shorter hitters, you can lay up here and then take it across. And then you're still have a chance at the green in 3. So whereas in the game, it's really not going to serve a purpose. Even if it's a fantasy course, I try to think about it in realistic ways. This could be an area that somebody wants to lay up, shorter hitters, or they don't, want to chance it with a driver. And you got your stairway leading up here. And I really like this look because, you get the sun off to the right, poking through. You get a lot of the, the long shadows, but then you see the light kind of twinkling through the trees here. And this tee shot I thought was really cool because I like the way these three bunkers line up and kind of stack on top of each other. And in a lot of my design, I work a lot in odd numbers. If I'm putting groups of things together, I like to put them in groups of 3 or 5 or 7. I know in like typical landscaping, that's a thing that people do. I think it works well visually to have areas of 3. So you remember like number 8 green had the three bunkers on the right and 3 bunkers on the left. And then, this is a par 5, but again, you catch a good slope and you can end up down here. You can end up with a pitching wedge into this par 5. And that's, it's by design. Some par 5s are going to be easier to reach. Some par 5s are not. And then depending on wind and conditions, it's going to be very difficult to reach some of them in 2. Some of these wild planted areas, took a lot of time on. I wanted them to look not man-made. This isn't the manufactured planting that you have down in the Castle Gardens down there. This is what grows wild out here. And now some of the wild plants are taken and cultivated for Castle Gardens, but this is how they grow in the wild. Down here to little raised elevated tee box or elevated green. And then you have to actually go backwards a little bit. And so you take the pathway back and up your stairs here, another path if you're playing the back tees. Don't mind that little floating tree there. Those are autogen trees that don't play well, but you don't see them during a normal playthrough. So up here is number 13 tee box, and it's probably my favorite view. I should have used it for the thumbnail for this course, but I wanted to show off more of the castle for the thumbnail. But you don't see a lot of the castle, but I like this. The only, kind of unique pine tree that I used was right here, where this one just kind of grows out and over the waterfall here. This is the waterfall that leads down to the cottage by hole 3. And so it kind of, leans out and over because I knew I wanted a tee shot. I knew I wanted a tee shot where there was a tree that kind of came into your line of sight. And so, but I didn't want it to be, in your face. So that's why I used that one there. And then, just some little touches again, like I talked about, that may go unnoticed or unappreciated. You have this log here that's fallen, it's holding on, it's being held up by this rock. And you have some fungus, some mushrooms that are growing out of the top of it. It's something that you'll see if you're looking for it on the tee, but you may not. My second regret with this course, and I really only have 2, the one I mentioned earlier with the split fairway and this one here. During my playthroughs, testing the course, I knew what this looked like. In the designer, you're usually taking a view like this. You're from a much higher angle looking up. And so I knew what this looked like. And so during my playthroughs, I am looking at how stuff looks visually, but a lot of times I'm worried about how it's playing too. And so I guess I'd get up to this hole, and this is more of this, depending on what camera angle you use when you're playing, this is kind of more the default angle that you're going to see the hole at. So you do get the tree, you do get the log and the mushrooms, you get a nice look down, you can see the green for number 12, number 12, is that 12? Anyways, but I should have either moved these tees a little closer here, because then you get a much better view. Or because I wanted you to be able to see more of the castle and the tree there to the left, I should have just lowered the front of this tee box down and made the front of the tee box back here, because you cut off a lot of that view right here. And that's unfortunate because, you take a lot of work doing stuff and you want people to see this. But when you cut it off and you don't move your tee boxes, then they get something like this. And it looks fine, but when they use the scout cam and they go up and they start going over here, they're like, whoa, wow, that's cool. I wish I could see that, from the tee box. So that, that's an unfortunate design aspect. Not done on purpose, but acknowledged after the fact. I did put the tees where I wanted them on purpose. I play tested and everything, and I guess I thought it looked fine from a design aspect, and then I just didn't think about not being able to see it from the tee box. A pretty standard green here, not a whole lot going on with it, but you do have more of a wild area. Lots of wildflowers around this point, heading up to number 14 tee here. So this is a hole that's pretty fun, I think, because it's a par 4, but I think it's the longest par 4 on the course. And again, little details, little wild area here with one of those sycamore trees. Little cottage again with some ivy growing on it. So off the tee box, your marker is going to put you somewhere around here. And it's going to tell you, this is where you're going to land. And so you think, you got a choice. Okay, I can try to lay it out to the right around these 2 trees here and see what happens. Or I can lay up to somewhere to the left of the 2 trees, but in front of the kind of wild overgrown area, because you don't want to get off in here, especially because a lot of these bushes are actually trees. And so you may hit a branch or knock around a branch or something. It's not gonna be pretty. Plus there's rocks and everything. It's not gonna make for a good shot. But if this is your first playthrough, and maybe you have the UI turned off on your arrow so you don't see how far downhill your tee shot is. This tee shot, I believe, is close to maybe 80 feet, maybe 100 feet downhill. And so in reality, your tee shot's really going to land right around here. And then it's all downhill to the green. So you're going to roll right over this hill here. You're kind of down, and you can end up I've had play tests, wind dependent, but I've had play tests where I've ended up all the way down here, or even, down here by this bunker in this area. And so you've taken a long par 4, and you've really chopped a lot of it off, and now you just got a short little pitch or flop or splash into the green. You get and if you're looking at the back, back up towards the hole, it's a nice little look with the wild areas. And it's not a infinity green. I guess. Maybe it's kind of an infinity green. Yeah, depending on how you look at it, depending on where your approach shot's coming from. But it does look to just drop off, down the side of the mountain, and in a lot of respects it kind of does, because you take the pathway down here to your next hole, and you can see if you were to go long on there, which is easy to do because your approach shot is normally a downhill slope, downhill lie, downhill to the hole. So it's very easy to go long. You can get yourself into some trouble with and your third shot's going to be pretty difficult. So you're down here to 15. And 15 I didn't decorate as highly as I would have wanted, because I had these kind of wild areas here, and you could still see, number 3 tee box. And I really wanted you to look more about what's going on out here in the fairway, because this is kind of what I thought about doing at number 10 when I said I wanted to make that rock wall. This is kind of what I was talking about. And I didn't make it there because I didn't want players smashing head on into the rock wall. But here, I had seen a course in real life that had these areas where they had drop-offs in the middle of the fairway, like this, like a spine in the middle of the fairway, but it was very steep drop-offs down from like the right side to the left side. And so I had put one in here, but then I wanted to kind of tie it in with the other rock elements. So that's why I built this kind of rock wall here. It doesn't really come into play if you're careful with your tee shot. You want to choose left or right. There's really not a better decision. I think the left side gets you a little bit closer to the green. The right side, you got to contend with the bunkers a bit. But the green itself is kind of parallel or perpendicular rather to the player. See, it's a long green. And so no matter what side you go to on the fairway, the right or the left, you're really going to be hitting into, a short side of the green. But it's a par 5. And so, your second shot should be difficult. And it's made difficult by, the bunkers surrounding. You can miss pretty easy and head off into the fairway side here and maybe even potentially roll into the water. A red fast or a red slow could potentially bring the water into play. But that's kind of the reasoning for, I wouldn't call that a split fairway. That's just kind of maybe a central hazard there that you got to be aware of, where neither the left or right really does a lot to affect the shot. And then 16 up here. So 16 is kind of, I think maybe my most plain par 3, but I like, from a design aspect, I like the bunkers in the front there that, again, kind of tear up to the green. You got five bunkers, so there's my odd numbers. And you can see you have the two bottom, you have the one in the middle, and then the one in the top. And so it draws your eye up into the pin. And then you have the rocks here that kind of angle up from the water line towards the pin. And then you have the tree line that, you put, the foreground trees are taller and they follow kind of the mountain slope in the background, follow it from right to left down to the pin. And so your eye from the left is kind of drawn up from the water to the pin, and then from the right, it's drawn down from the trees and the mountains to the pin. So, and then the bunkers in the front kind of draw your eye from the bottom up to it. So everything kind of leads to the pin, where you want it to go. Because if you're looking at this like a picture, the pin is what's important on this one, and you want your eye drawn to it. So we play up to the green site here, and a lot of times you end up back behind the pin, and so your putt down, you can see back down to the castle in the background and to the lake, which if you take a look from above, this is the larger lake area, that whole river back there that starts on hole 11. This is where it all leads to this large basin and collection area with the rock faces on the side here. And so when we're down to 17, I said I decorated every tee box. I didn't decorate every tee box. I guess that was a lie. But with 17, immediately you're not really looking at the tee box because you're trying to find the green. And when you realize that the green is over here on the side of kind of the cliff's edge, then you wonder, okay, how am I going to get there? And again, 3 bunkers, odd numbers. I like it. The bunkers lead your eye to the path. I mean, not only your scout cam is going to lead you there, but if you're not playing with a scout cam, the bunkers lead you down to where you want to go, which is right in this area. You want to land right around here, because when you land here, you'll get a little kick forward, and then you can ride the fairway down, and depending on how much of a kick and how well you hit your drive, you can end up, as far down as the front of this green here where there is a pin set, or you may even be able to make it all the way down into the middle here for this pin. But I wanted a green kind of on a cliff's edge here. And so this is what I, came up with. And then to get back up, you have this kind of light rough pathway back up the cliff, and you're coming up to 18 now. You come through. Where am I? I've lost it. There's my path. And you're coming up to 18. And so 18 gives us, 18 is right next to, number 6, fairway and green. So you kind of get the ruins there. You have these sections of fencing that are, broken. You can see the broken ends of them here kind of tie into those ruins that were built over there. And, from the tee box here, you get a view of the mountains in the background down to the forests. You have the castle on the left. And, your waypoint initially is a 3-wood. And so it tries, the game and the designer tries to tell you, okay, this may be a 3-shot par 5 finisher. And this raised bunker in the front here just kind of adds some depth to the hole. So you're not just looking straight downhill. You have some, foreground leading into the bunkers in the back. And so this is kind of where your waypoint is initially. And you think, okay, I got a 3-wood here. I go here. And then my layup shot is out over next to the castle that was off of number 1. And then I'm into the island green. But in most cases, you can take your driver. And if you take it over this bunker here, which from the tee box, you can see. So you can see the top of that bunker there. You take your driver out over that tee box, and because it's far enough downhill, if you have, a decent wind, you can end up bouncing down here and ending up on this, little elevated piece of fairway here. And now you have probably a 5 or maybe a 4-iron into the green. Still a tough shot, but you can do it. Otherwise, you're laying up more in this area where now you have maybe a pitching wedge or a gap wedge or sand wedge into the green. A little easier shot, but you maybe hit your 3rd shot as opposed to trying to go for the green and 2. Straight, a little pathway. This one's built kind of on the water. It's like almost like a floating bridge instead of one that's built, up on stilts or something. And then I always knew, like I said, I wanted to start at the castle and finish at the castle. So this was my finishing hole here. The 18th green is a natural island green. We have 3 of the sycamore trees that I've planted around. Again, one final time, tying everything back together visually. The same kind of planting kept throughout. But here you get to, you're kind of playing underneath the aqueducts and the collection pools that were built coming out of the castle. On this side, you have, what I call it, the son-in-law castle that has their seating area overlooking the green. You still have some planting there, rocks and everything breaking up the shoreline. And and then you have the castle proper up there in the background with that tall mountain peak. I just tried to use everything that was in my control, meaning the land, the planting, the castles, the golf itself, with things that were out of my control, which is like the background. I don't control where those mountains are, but I can control how my course looks and where my course plays up to those mountains. So I try to use that as much as possible. So yeah, that is the greens at Mistwood. If you've given it a play already, thank you very much. I hope that this video maybe gives you a little insight into some of the work that went into it that you may or may not have seen before. If you haven't given it a shot, go ahead and give it a play. Tell me what you think. You can reach me on Twitter at JRayGun_TAG. That's JRayGun, the Atomic Golfer. Or you can reach me in various Discords. I'm in VctryLnSprts Discord. I'm in What About Amiobi's Discord, Progressive Golf's Discord. Come find me there. I'm JRayGun there as well. But look forward to my next course coming out. It's another contest entry. It's VctryLnSprts Backyard Bonanza. contest. That is a course that will be confined to a 500 yard by 500 yard square. And really looking forward to that one because I got some really unique design features going on that's just related to the golf. Haven't really even started on the off-course stuff yet. So really looking forward to putting that one out because I think it's going to be visually different than anything that I've done before and different than a lot of what you'll see out there right now. Not to say that it's completely original because I'm sure some others have done some similar things in the past. But as far as the majority of the courses that are getting put out now, I think the look is going to be something completely different. So anyways, thanks for joining me for the tour around the greens at Mistwood. Appreciate everything the community does to help the designers, to help support them and show them that they are appreciated and that it's both the designers and the players that keep this game going, almost 2 years post-launch. So we hope to talk to you again. And until then, you have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much.